Board members, we're going to get started here. I want to call this meeting to order. This is our USDB board meeting. I want to excuse Superintendent Coleman and Associate Superintendents Michelle Tanner and Carolyn Lassiter. Want to introduce Jennifer Salazar, Utah School for the Deaf, and Brandon White, Utah School for the Blind. You'll be representing our superintendency today. Superintendent Dixon's going to take this spot right here. Want to welcome everyone here. The first action item on our agenda is approval of the minutes. I'm seeking a motion to approve the minutes for November 2nd, 2018 meeting.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Oh, there we go. And we have a second. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Voting is unanimous. Next, we'll have our public comment. And for those of the public that are going to speak, we're going to allow 3 minutes. And this part of our agenda is where you get the mic. If you pay attention up here a little bit, Miss Lorraine will give a clue on your time. This isn't a time of exchanging debate, conversation, and that, but it's for the record. And so your comments will go into our minutes. So with this, I'd like to invite Adam Janasky, I think I might have got that right, to come up. And then following Adam, then Brooke Grossinger, did I get it right? Or Gurr would be followed. So Adam, I want to invite Adam. Okay, do you need another chair for the interpreter?
Hello, my name is Adam Janeski. I'm a deaf and hard of hearing individual. I'm here to represent bilingual ASL and spoken English education. I grew up in a home using what's called simultaneous communication, which was a popular method in the 80s where they spoke and signed at the same time. So that gave us as students an opportunity to figure out how we were able to fit in with the non-deaf population at large. And as I've grown up, I've felt separated or isolated with hearing individuals or non-deaf individuals because of my ability to speak or verbalize. So I guess I'd just like to put my 2 cents in the integration of both spoken language as well as signed language. Both have been instrumental in my development of personal identity and self-growth. In not being able to do one or the other, I would feel like I was missing something, right? I would feel like I am not in the loop with either community. And so I would just like to put my 2 cents in promoting that Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind continue to do signed and spoken language for our children. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Brooke. And will you I'm wanting to get that last name right. Is it Grossinger or Gurr?
I'm not sure, actually.
All right, we tried.
Grossinger would be good, yeah.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Brooke. I am from a deaf family. My parents are deaf, my grandparents are deaf. Both my husband and I come from families like that. We both graduated from Gallaudet University. He works as a software engineer, and I work as a community relations specialist. We have 2 kids, a girl who's 6, who is a student there at Jane Massieu, and I have a son who's 4, who is not deaf, and I'd like to focus on his story and his experience, which seems a little bit backwards at first, but when he was born, we conducted a hearing test, and he failed twice and I thought that he was deaf, and I was thrilled, right? So then they conducted a third one, right, which was mandatory, and they found out that he is hearing, and I was devastated. It took me a whole year to come to terms with the fact that my son could hear. I don't even know why. I felt like I was at a loss. It was, a reversal of roles than the story that we usually hear, right? Do I tell him that he can't speak language because our language at home is sign language? And of course not, right? And so at school he learns how to speak English, and at home he learns how to do sign language because our whole family is deaf. So my point in my comment is that the initial growth period that we work with students is instrumental in language development, right? So it takes time at home and at school to expose a student to development of language. ASL, it isn't a bad language. I think often we demonize it, and it's a great opportunity to be inclusive of deaf and non-deaf populations. So once children learn sign language, it can help them learn spoken language, actually. That's what research has shown lately. So I think it's interesting that we often decline a deaf child's opportunity to learn sign language. I just wanted to pose those thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. Next, we'll have Heather Aldridge.
Hello, my name is Heather Aldridge. I want to start with my own personal experience. I grew up in a what's called an oralist method growing up. Until I was about 10, I didn't learn sign language. And I remember those initial periods were incredibly hard for me to follow any form of a group conversation where there's an overlap of dialogue. It was very difficult, and I felt like it was hard for me to receive any kind of access to communication. When I started to learn sign language, I started to gain access to a lot of comments and language. My brother is also born deaf, likewise I was. And when he was born, he had a hard time learning how to verbalize with his spoken voice. And it really breaks my heart to see the struggle of trying to acquire a language. And the more and more I think about it, the more and more I learn, or the more and more I learned back then to use sign language with my brother. And I could see a light in his eyes. And I have a deaf son now, and I can't take that away from him. I have triplets, and they're all boys, and one of them is deaf. And in our home, my husband and I are giving him the opportunity to learn how to verbalize as well as sign. I want him to have every opportunity, no matter what the opportunity is, and he can decide when the time comes what he wants to do. Giving both languages, a signed and a spoken language, is, I think, the form of the best opportunity for deaf children. So those are my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Next, we'll have Katie Snow.
Hi, so I'm Katie Snow. I have 2 daughters that have hard of hearing, mild to moderate hearing loss, and we have been in the PIP program with my younger daughter. We didn't discover my older daughter until she was in kindergarten, and we've been participating in the toddler group. And I would just like to give my experience of that as coming this year with having ASL and LSL in spoken language in that toddler group. It's been a really eye-opening for us. We don't have sign language in our family. These guys are, I guess, kind of the second generation of hearing loss, but in mildness, so we didn't really ever have to go with ASL. And so it's been fun to see it and experience and have her engage in the class in the toddler group with the other kids that are trying to do sign language, and see her eyes light up and see how, wow, I'm not explaining this well, but anyway, we've taken the approach of being tourists in the ASL world, and doing the toddler group has allowed us to do that. You know, we learn a little bit, and she learns a little bit, I learn a little bit, and I can bring it home. But we still engage in a toddler group like any other toddler group would be. So I don't know if I explained that well, but thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Katie. Next, we'll have Morgan Smith.
Sorry, I stepped on your foot. My name is Morgan Smith. Thank you for having me. I graduated from USDB, so my story is not unique. It's similar to a lot of our deaf students who grew up here and learned how to speak as well as sign. Me and my sister were both born with profound hearing loss. And through the help of Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind, we were able to be successful students. For me, as someone who was attending a mainstreamed school without sign language, was a struggle. Accessibility wasn't always there. Teachers would sometimes turn to write on the board, and I would miss what they would say. And in retrospect, I wish that there was an interpreter there to help provide me that access. As an adult now, knowing how complex human emotion, identity, relationships, mental processes, language, all of that, I really wished that both of those languages, listening, spoken language, as well as American Sign Language, were afforded to me. I've seen how that's benefited others, and I can see how that benefits me now. So I don't think that takes away from anyone. I think if we continue to remember that sign language isn't any form of a takeaway, it builds individuals' identities, it builds our growth and relationships. So thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. I think this concludes our public comment. Do you have any other, Ms. Lorraine? Okay, thank you. Next, we'll go to our monthly budget report. Finance Director Carl Empey, you're ready for this presentation?
I am. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, board members, and Superintendent. It's a pleasure to be here. Happy holidays to everyone. Our financial report is for the period that ended from July 1st through October 31st. Our revenues and state transfers for the period were $10.3 million. Our expenditures were $10.1 million, so we had more revenues than we did expenditures. So everything looks good and on track. Number of students served was 1,770. Our balance in the Land Grant Enrichment Fund as of October 31st is $1,398,115. Our donated fund balance is $2,013,182. Any questions on that first tab on the financial report?
Questions from board members?
If not, the next attachment is the budget status report that goes into the granular level of what's on the status report and giving all the detail of each line item that comprises the $10.3 million on revenues and $10.1 million of expenses. And don't know if there's any questions on that or not.
Questions from board members? Not seeing any. Please continue.
Okay, great. The third tab is our enrichment fund project list that was approved by the board and by the advisory council. The total projects for the year is $1,014,100. We've spent year to date $279,018, which gives us remaining balance of $735,082. And that is the financial report, unless there's any questions.
Questions or comments from board members? Not seeing any? Oh, here we, maybe. I think I can hear somebody pounding on something down there at the end. There we go.
That's me.
This is called seat 45, so that must be,
It says seat 45, did I?
I don't think you were
Yes,
45
I
years old
am.
yet, but.
I'm in District 45.
Okay, Board Member Belknap.
I have a question. Why is the Medicaid already in the negative?
That's a good question.
You're on already.
Okay. We claimed a few students and reported and were paid by the Department of Health for students that actually were belonging to a different district, so we had to refund that. So you'll see next month, you'll see a positive number coming in.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Do you have,
Budget status.
did,
We were, I just didn't get my thing done.
let's use our mics and then so we can make sure we can get all of this. Any other questions? Are we all caught? I don't mind giving you, let's just hold up for a second. Let's just make sure the board members can access. So we'll just pause for a second. Vice Chair Ellis, are you into where you need to be? Do you have any questions?
No, I'm just fine. You just were on enrichment fund. The question was on the other sheet, and so I'm not incompetent. I just wanted to see where we were because it wasn't on the enrichment funds.
We were derailed to another sheet, so we're okay. We're all caught up then? We're good? Thank you, Finance Director Empty. Good report. It's good to see these coming the way they are. And
Thank you.
is there anything that we should be doing better for you and giving you any support?
No, you're giving us a lot of support through your staff with Scott Jones and Natalie Grange and Deborah Jacobson, and we're very appreciative of their assistance. We're calling you sometimes weekly, monthly for sure, and they're always very good to help us out, so thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, we're not seeing any other questions or comments. We'll move to our next item. This is the recodification of the USDB code, and who's got control of that? Angie?
does.
Okay, so are you guys going to tag team this one? We need to turn your mic on, and then will you reintroduce yourself? And okay.
Absolutely. So my name is Brandon Watts, and I'm the Director of Outreach Vision Services with the Utah Schools for the Deaf and the Blind, and I supervise the teachers of the visually impaired that work in the different school districts throughout Utah.
And my name is Jennifer Salazar. I'm the Listening and Spoken Language Director, so I have classrooms in Salt Lake and Ogden, as well as outreach students, Salt Lake North. And, yeah.
Yes, so we're going to talk about the changes made to the provisions. Us three will discuss them based on blind, deaf, and finance, and so forth. So in section 7, if we could scroll down to, from definitions, number 7, cortical visual impairment. The term neurological vision disorder is a very old term, so it was replaced with the terms cortical or cerebral visual impairment because more and more literature is using either or both of these terms.
Okay, and if you go on to the next page, under 11 for educator, it's just simplified the language. Instead of having all of those things listed, it was just simplifying it to an individual licensed by the board under section 53E 6-102 or credentialed by the governing body of the individual's area of professional practice. Any questions or concerns on that one?
I'm not seeing any. I'd continue and then.
Feel free to
Bill-
stop us
Bill
if
and
you
me.
have questions.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll just keep going. Number 18, please, where it says low vision. So low vision used to be defined as just a visual acuity loss of 20/70 or more, or that their visual field is reduced by less than 20 degrees. We decided that it best be updated to also include that their educational performance is affected even with correction, or one or more major life activities are substantially limited. Some examples of this might be night blindness. That in a room like this, a student with night blindness can see perfectly fine, but as soon as the lights get dim, then they can't see and they trip over backpacks, other students, and so those students have low vision. Another example could be light sensitivity. When they go outside on a bright sunny day, they cannot see to be safe. And also other students with difficulty tracking or others, but those are just some examples of what low vision could mean.
Okay, so if you go to the bottom of the page, 2B, we're just recommending IEP or Section 504 Team B, the verbiage, instead of having LEA of record, parent or legal guardian, and the Utah Schools for the Deaf, IEP team infers that those people will be part of that team.
Yes.
Carl, the next.
Okay. The next one is in 53E8203. Last year, Zach Christensen on your staff made you guys, USBE and USOE, an independent procurement agency. The statute's a little vague for USDB, and so what we're trying to do is clarify USDB. We want to be treated as a political subdivision and for the purposes of compliance with the chapter or Title 63G, Chapter 6A for the Utah Procurement Code. Basically would just state that USBE would be the governing authority for procurement authorization and rules for USDB.
I'm not seeing any questions.
Okay, so next one, 53E204, 6B, if we could scroll down to that. No worries. Thank you. Okay, so there were a lot of things that were taken out and best replaced by simple definition and terms. Those terms are that the interim committee on the School for the Deaf and the Blind report includes a financial report, a report on USDB programs and activities, and a report on student academic performance.
Okay. So next would be under Part 4. And, go ahead.
We have a question. Board Member Reeby.
So on line 252, I noticed that you took out achievement including and then all those lines afterwards. What was the rationale behind this or the intent? Because I think that performance is a little vague, and I think that achievement kind of says is more targeted and has a goal in mind, so that's a concern of mine.
Definitely. We're not going to discontinue reporting on those things. They wanted to change the terminology so we could include other things. Another thing that we discussed, and there were a lot of things that we could include in this, they decided to reduce it down to make it simplified for the code. So other activities could also be like the expanded core curriculum, which are the activities and the skills that people who are blind and visually impaired require to be successful in the home, school, and community. Those will be determined and discussed in the USDB programs and activities.
Oh, it's in the later?
Oh, it's
Or-
written before.
Oh, before?
Yeah. They decided to keep it to simplify it rather than,
Yeah, on 248. So instead of all that language, we're just going to have programs and activities?
activities and academic performance, yes. And we definitely do want to report on everything that is going on that we feel is best for you to know. And so, but it was too lengthy, and they determined that it would be best defined as programs, activities, and academic performance.
Do you
I
have
don't
a
see
follow-up?
academic performance.
So-
Where's that?
It's under 4.
For 6B4, Ivy,
6B4.
if you scroll down, oh, it's right there, student performance, highlighted in gray now.
But it doesn't say academic.
It doesn't say academic.
Ours should, it doesn't say academic.
Oh, no.
They may have taken that out. The copy we got says academic, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So the
report on
academic should
student-
absolutely be put in there.
Okay, thank you.
On student academic performance, yes. Okay, I understand your concern.
Okay. Do you have a
No,
follow-up?
that's it. Thank you so
Okay. Vice Chair Brittany Cummins.
Sorry, I just keep hearing you say they recommend. Can you tell me who the they are?
Superintendent.
The
and-
superintendent. and
yes.
Associate superintendents.
Okay, please continue.
Okay, so under Part 4, 53E 8401, under C, they wanted to add the parent-infant program referral source consistent with IDEA Part C, and it's 1D under
The 312,
312.
313.
Okay, sorry. We don't have line numbers. The one that he gave us, sorry, that would have been easier. Okay, so we just wanted to just add that just in case there was people who wanted to be, that needed to be referred, PIP can also refer students to school districts as well. And then the next one, what would 2A be? 218? Okay.
Board Member Belknap?
Thank you, Chair. So my question's on the PIP program. Is it a specific program, or is it the process?
So the parent-infant program works with the early intervention agencies, and I think they just wanted the latitude if a child was referred to PIP at maybe 34 or 35 months, that child could just automatically be referred to the school
Okay, but
district.
the reason I'm asking this, maybe for clarity, is if PIP is a program, that program could change at some time.
Right.
So you might not want to use the exact program name. You might want to say early childhood
Intervention.
referral source
Okay.
instead of, because if it ever changed,
So if we were to change it to USDB.
otherwise you've got to go back and do it again in statute
USDB, Early Intervention Program.
or something along those lines.
Okay. Okay, we'll report back. And then on 2A, which would be 218, 318, I can read. Determining eligibility for diagnosing, we just want to take out the diagnosing because we aren't doing diagnosing. We're just determining eligibility.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, so on 3C, this statement was taken out, which is a parent or legal guardian of a child who is deaf, blind, or deafblind shall make the final decision regarding the placement of the child for the Utah schools for the deaf and the blind. This was taken out to follow IDEA. Too many schools were allowing parents to make their choice without consulting the IEP team. And the parents were choosing the USDB placement because of convenience and time, and rather than deciding what was the least restrictive environment for the student, which is that students are best placed as close to their typically developing peers as they can be. And so this language was taken out to be consistent with IDEA. Okay. Oops.
Board Member Belknap?
Sorry, Chair. Okay, so on this would still run the same as an IEP process, that if a parent doesn't agree with what happened in that process, they still have the ability to.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, this isn't like a Senate where the majority rules. It has to be, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for that. Okay. And then I have the next one as
Hey,
well.
Brandon?
Yes, sir.
Just as we get into this, as I'm looking at how significant a lot of these changes are, yeah, I'm on. No. I'm not on?
Well, the light's off, but. The light's tweaking. Jiggle the thing, it's just a light.
What am I not clicking?
Yeah, it's just it's a glitch in the light. Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, sorry, but you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
These are some pretty significant changes, and a couple of concerns that I have that is I want to make sure our legal gets you a chance to look through them, and I'm just going to invite the board that not to propose to take action on it this time. I think it would be best to bring it back next time when the superintendent's here too. But I appreciate all the work, and so let's finish this work through, or this presentation, your presentation with these proposed changes, and we'll have some staff do another quick once through on it. AAGs, do you have a comment?
Sure, Chair. Just in response to that, I know that Michelle has met with Zach in procurement to review the procurement piece on this. I talked with Joe Pullman and reviewed this as well with him. He's indicated, as an aside, that he sent this over to, I guess there's a teachers, not a union, but an association, had them review it, make sure he got their blessing on this, and he did. So he's been pretty thorough in getting with us ahead of time to give it a review.
Okay, well, I was thinking about even having some additional staff take a look at some of this language as we're moving forward. We have this chance for a betterment. Let's make sure it's the very best that we can do as we accept all of these changes. Board Member Warner?
Or
Hanson. You know what this came, oh, I don't know how I
There'll
keep
be
saying
two
that.
Hansons next month, so you
I
can
know
get a
it's
lot
gonna
of
be
Hanson
worse.
practice.
That's a third time. I'm about ready to pass this mic over.
Sorry.
Board Member.
You know what, I was on the
Hanson.
committee, we looked at this up at the legislature. This is the recod from that we were working on at the legislature. There's a bill file open on this. I think that they're already working on this, and so I think that this is, he just wants us to be aware of it, and then the board to support, I think, those efforts, right?
not the same.
This is not the same one?
No.
Yeah, that would be good, Angie, because I thought it was, because he called me and told me we were going to do the recod, and that he wanted me to speak for it.
So there is a recod, there's a group, Angie Stallings, Deputy Superintendent of Policy. So Assistant Superintendent Voorhees, Leah representing our office, and Superintendent Dixon, and Joel Superintendent Coleman participated on a working group on a recodification. So did you, with Representative Cutler and Representative Christensen. So all of that is a bill, and that is different. This was all stuff that I think Joel wanted included in that bill, but they ran out of time. And so he has been working on these changes separately. So it would be a separate bill than that one.
So it's going to be a separate bill, not one representative.
That's my understanding, but Superintendent Coleman could provide, that was the context he provided to Brian, Leanna, and I when we met with him, is that these are things that he was going to present to that working group, but they ran out of time. So there will be the interim committees, special ed, education, recodification, working group bill, and this would be a second bill, is my understanding.
So time-wise, I think we're still safe. There's just some words and terms and that I just want to make sure that, so we don't have to bring it back to amend it. You bet.
You know, with my limited knowledge of special education, I haven't seen, everything seems to be really good and clean, and that they're fixing things that need to be fixed. So at least that's what it looks like to me.
Well, I'm just expressing my concern moving forward, that if I would hate to bring it back, try to bring something back and amend it when we can allow some more time, and the superintendent here in January just to put the finishing touches on it. So, just my recommendation to the board. Okay, so please continue.
Wonderful, thank you. So scrolling down to 53E8 403 Educational Programs, some additional clarification was added to Section 2 so that it now states, if a student's ability to access the core curriculum is impaired primarily due to a severe sensory loss and requires intensive sensory-based instruction or services, the Utah Schools for the Deaf and the Blind shall provide an educational program that will enable the student with accommodations to access the core curriculum.
Okay, and then under 53E-8406, number 2, it's a simple change from deafblind certification to deafblind educational endorsement. It's just a language change.
Okay, 53E-8407. Almost there. There we go. Okay. So we added the term blind to Section 1 and visually impaired to Section 2 to keep the definitions consistent with each other. They also added in Section 3, the Advisory Council shall make recommendations regarding the design and implementation of the program to the board. Taking out the word subject to the approval of, because the making recommendations regarding the design and implementation of the program to the board. It just reads better, and they made that adjustment. And in section 4, they took out the term interest and dividends and replaced it with revenue distributed.
Okay, then the next page under 53E 8409 for the instructional, for the USIMAC Center. Under 2B, it's defined how the Educational Resource Center, they just took out that language because USIMAC comes under Utah Schools for the Deaf. And then under 2D, they just struck out that, that language as well because the schools no longer incur a cost for the USIMAC materials.
Okay, 53E-8410, regarding school districts to provide class space for deaf and blind programs. We understand there's not always money and space available to provide to us, so they changed the term to state, a school district with students who reside within the school district boundaries and are served by the Utah Schools for the Deaf and the Blind shall make a good faith effort to furnish the schools with space required for their programs.
And then the last one is in the state procurement code, and it's on line 610. All we're doing is adding, that currently reads for the State Board of Education, and we're adding to that, and the Utah Schools for the Deaf and the Blind, just for inclusion to piggyback with you folks.
Okay, Board Member Hanson.
Sorry, I just called Joel to see, because we were texting, and he said, this is the recodification bill that Representative Pulsifer is doing, and that Ledge Research will be doing the legal review on it, so.
On this?
On this. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I'm glad there will be some research done on it, but my concern was just that we're going to approve, the perception was we're going to approve something and then move it forward, and then we're done with that, and I can see a few changes and tweaks that it's not going to take away a whole bunch, but I'm still going to come back to, I think it would be best serve us to take a look at this, have our AGs one more time, and I mean, I've made a few notes on this myself to visit it and get it approved next month. I don't think this is going to hold up any process with the legislature or anything. So that's just a recommendation. We can have motions to do other. Vice Chair Ellis.
I'm just asking you, the chair, if anyone has, like in a committee meeting, because we don't have a committee, we would normally go through and people would kind of hash out different things that they would like to see brought forth, and so I'm just wondering if anyone has anything like that. I don't. I do have a question on line 471, 472. Well, it's on 53E-8-410. It read that they shall furnish the school with space required for programs, and now we put make a good faith effort, and that just seems pretty subjective to me, and I'm just kind of curious what the thought process is on that. Like, we strongly encourage, we just say we did. I mean, do you know what they're?
There may not be the space available, there may not be the money available.
Right, but who gets to determine whether or not they made an effort?
Superintendent Coleman they had talked about just taking this out completely, but someone had recommended keeping this in because at least then the districts need to make the effort to give us some space if they have it available. So.
Okay, we've got a few lights still on. Let's see. Nope. Board Member Reby, is your light on for a reason? Okay, other board comments? I thought there's some pretty good work done here. I just had a few questions, and I believe in our next meeting in probably 20, 25 minutes to a half hour, all of that would be resolved, is what I'm speculating. And we can be prepared for it and do it in our next in our next meeting. I don't know. Oh, the question is, go ahead.
Will the timing cause a problem? I don't know if it will or not, if they need to have it. I know that this is for Representative Pulsiver's draft bill. I don't know how soon they need the draft.
Forward.
No, it is the bill. There's one bill that's a special ed bill that's a committee bill, and then this is the USDB portion, and this is Representative Pulsiver's bill, he said.
So, thank you. Hey, Chair, would you like me to speak or answer?
Yes.
So the next time that you meet will be, I think, the first or second week of January. It sounds like Representative Pulsifer already has the bill file open, so it's not a question of getting a bill file open, which is usually the urgent thing you want to get done. And the session starts the end of January. So I think if you provided additional feedback, whether or not Representative Pulsifer begins with what you see before, and then you provide additional feedback either before it's numbered or after it's numbered, I think you'll have another opportunity. I don't think there's any problem, but it's because the session doesn't start till the end of January.
Okay. I think we can get this. I think we can do it in about a half hour's time, and there's a couple things I'd want to research on, a couple things, just make sure that language works. So it's going to take some backup information. So it looks like we're going to bring it back unless the board wants to do something different. But thank you for the work, and I'm going to, as soon as the superintendent gets back, I'll pass my concerns on and some of those questions and inquiries that I think we can polish this up just a little bit. And if board members have any questions or concerns, let's shoot them to Lorraine, and then it will probably help expedite our next meeting. Because this is like a regular school board now and not our normal board that would take something to a committee. Okay, well thank you. The superintendent didn't email me anything of any kind of concerns that he wants to share in a superintendent's report. We don't have anything that we need to do in an executive committee, so I thank you for being here today. Appreciate. Is there any other board questions or comments? Okay, we'll seek a motion to adjourn. Second? Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?